and welcome into Poke the Bear episode 41. 41. I'm blanking on play Yaroslav Halak. Yaroslav Halak, 41. Oh, that guy. Remember that guy? I'm Evan Marinofski, alongside Conor and Evan, Boston Sports Journal. Connor, how we doing?
Evan, doing swell.
I am doing swell as well. Ooh, like that. And all these things. It's so funny. It's exciting times. You know, warmer weather. The restrictions are being lifted a little bit. TD Garden will have 5,000 people-ish starting May 10th, right in time for the playoffs. I can't wait to hear some more chants from the balcony. You know, I can't wait to hear some more you know, Mike from Southeast in the back of the balcony, just, you know, chucking up, you know, hey Sidney Crosby, you suck. I can't wait to hear that again. And
nature's healing.
Nature's healing. You've been there that whole time that the fans have been back, and you've heard some good. I imagine you've heard some good chirps.
Of course, yeah. It helps when you've only got a couple thousand in there. I think it echoes throughout the cavernous garden. But I think we will probably take more people and less chirps standing out than we take the wall of sound as opposed to just one angry dude from Haverhill screaming up in the nosebleeds. So
yeah, no, I'm fine with that as well. Give me the wall of sound and give me some chants rather than one dude just screaming at something out. I'm totally for all that coming back, and it's going to be interesting to see how 5,000 people do, or how it is with how much it elevates the sound, and you know what it's like with 5,000 people, because you know they're going to be arenas that are almost full come playoff time in other parts of the country. So I'm interested to see how that all takes shape. But your Boston Bruins do have some topical things going on. And one of those things, I'd say number one, maybe, this Jeremy Swayman guy. He can play. He can play. And he came from Hockey East, and he didn't go to BU. He didn't go to BC. I'm proud to mention this next team in with all those. He didn't go to UMass. Went to Maine. He went to Maine. Paul Korea. But this Swayman guy can play. It's proven at this point. And one thing that has become abundantly clear this week is it looks as if he's probably bumped Yaroslav Halak. Is that the right move? Is this going to keep going? Your general thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I can't see any reason why you would take him out of the rotation at this point, right? I think Bruce Cassidy more or less said that had this been, the middle of the season, and they had a little bit more of a window or maybe a bit more breathing room in the standings to incorporate and get Halak back into the mix, then of course you do that, right? I mean, it's not like they were looking forward to this year. It wasn't part of the plan to have Halak get bumped out of the rotation and to have Jeremy Swayman step in. They didn't even think he was going to be remotely close to the NHL. Like, if this year went according to plan, they'd be more than happy with him splitting reps with Vladar down in Providence and dealing with the expected development road bumps that you would imagine would come from a guy making the jump from college hockey to the pros. Hasn't happened. Thankfully for the Bruins, it's also worked out extremely well, right? So I think you look at just the fact that they only have so many games left in the schedule. At this point, you need to have, the best product out there on the ice, because the Rangers are right behind you, right? There's still you got 2 games in hand on them, still only 4 points separating you. So it's not like you can afford to roll out Halak in a game where, maybe he lets in three goals and shakes the rust off. You don't have that wiggle room right now, right? You'd rather roll out with Swayman, who has been spectacular, right? I think Bruce Cassidy said multiple times he's yet to let in a bad goal, right? You haven't seen one of those shots from just past the blue line that beats him glove side, and you're like, which if we gave one of those up, you wouldn't be surprised, right? It's a rookie goalie. Like, those happen. He's not done that. He's tracked every puck well. He's given you the best chance to win every single time he's out there. Even his losses, how many of them are you going to really put on him? You're going to put that first loss of Pittsburgh on them when they lose 1-0? No, of course not. So I think when you look at just the window that the Bruins have, how little time they have to get ready for the playoffs, and how much they need to rack up these points right now, I think it's the clearest option. Because again, I don't know how much we want to jump into the playoffs, because I think we all are in agreement that Stuka Rask net right in the playoffs. But for right now, you have to pile on these points. And you can't have Rask out there every single day. Swayman gives you the best option, no doubt.
Also, I think we know what we're getting with Halak. Like the Bruins know what they're going to get with Halak, and he makes some really spectacular saves. He's good with the high danger save percentage usually, but the issue then comes with the softies. I think back to that Buffalo game. I think it was Buffalo, where he let in some of those just some heinous shots, and it's like that's what you get with him. Like that's his thing, and I think that. I also think putting Swayman back there more and more increases the likelihood that Halak walks at the end of this year. Right. And then you're spending way less money in net, because Rask, if he comes back, which he should, is going to make less than he is now. Then you take out Halak's money and you're paying what? $6 million potentially for your net for a really good tandem. Like, I think that's pretty good. You can put that money elsewhere in the lineup. That's not a bad situation. Which is why I have no problem with Swayman bumping Halak. And Halak will still be around the dressing room. And he'll still mentor Swayman in those ways. But I mean, Swayman's played out of his mind, man. You tweeted the stat, the high danger save percentage thing. I mean, it's ridiculous. Yeah. Like that's absurd.
I mean, most goalies would be happy with like an 830 high danger save percentage, right? Like, again, they're called high danger save percentage because most times they end up in the back of the net. Like, I think out of that list, there's obviously a few other guys who are played 10 plus games, so they're kind of high up on the list, but it's not a huge sample size. But I think the number one like starting goalie on the list, I think, is Vasilevsky, and I think he's like 860. So like, again, that's far and beyond what is expected from a goalie in that situation. To have Swayman be 915, that's nuts. That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, it would only happen for a goalie who's openly admitted that he loves shootouts. So I guess maybe he's used to it. So
yes, it's funny. I think a lot of people are surprised that Swayman's like this kind of like chill, normal dude, even though liking shootouts is not a normal thing.
Yes.
But I remember I had him on Bruins beat during the dog days of quarantine. And remember when there was like no content? Remember those days? I would not do anything to go back to those days, but I had him on one week. And just like, I don't know, he was not like your average, like crazy goalie. He was just like a normal guy, It was whatever. He was a kid. And I remember at Maine, he used to, go over to the glass and, interact with fans. He does it here in Boston. And so I think like, it's kind of him. He's just having a good time, man. And he's chill and he's the chill goalie. He's the hippie goalie. He's chill, man. Like, but I don't think he's hippie at all. I think he's an outdoorsman at the most. That's why he chose Maine, actually, was the outdoors aspect of it, which I just think is amazing. That is awesome. Can't believe he didn't choose BU for that. The outdoors at the nature around BU.
Charles River Esplanade. I mean, what more do you need?
You can hike around there all day. Go swimming in the Charles. What do you think? What are you doing, man?
I mean, is it more dangerous than running into bears? Hiking up in Alaska? I don't know. I think it might be more risk jumping in the Charles.
So. Oh yeah, it's funny. There's I shouldn't be saying this publicly probably, but we have a campus pond at UMass, and obviously it's a last couple weeks here, and everyone's like, oh, let's jump in the campus pond. That campus pond, if you jumped in that before COVID, you would be immune to COVID. You'd be immune to everything if you jumped in.
Should have been ahead of the curve then, Evan.
I should have jumped in at the beginning of last March, and then I would not have had to get vaccinated. COVID would not have been a thing for me. Now we get to the third line, which is kind of the controversial topic in Bruins land these days. What is the ideal third line setup? Now, Cassidy has tinkered with this all season. I in some ways, I'll say this. I feel bad for Charlie Coyle in a sense. I know he's not producing. And I know that obviously that's an issue. Like I'm totally on the bandwagon that Charlie Coyle is not consistent at producing. We know that. We've known that for years now. But going into this year, you think about it. Charlie Coyle was told Craig Smith will be your right winger. You will have Craig Smith on your right side, which is pretty damn good. Now, granted, he didn't produce much when you're next to Coyle. So there's that. But he was pretty much promised Craig Smith. And on the left side, it was probably going to be Nick Ritchie, but whatever. You'll have someone there. Whether it's Ritchie, DeBrusk, whoever, like they'll be solid enough. But now you think about it. Coyle's in the scoring drought. Cassidy takes the two wingers who are next to David Krejci, Nick Ritchie, and Jake DeBrusk, who Krejci had a tough time jump starting, and puts him with Coyle and says, have fun with these guys. Now, I agree. That third line needs to do way more. Charlie Coyle needs to do more. They need to score. They need to produce points. They need to show up on the score sheet. I'm totally for that. But I think people have to understand also that Coyle was kind of put in a shit situation here with Jake DeBrusk, who is as inconsistent as inconsistent gets, and Nick Ritchie, who fits in certain places but not in every place. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even if the Bruins are switching Coyle over to the wing over the last couple of games, try to get him, get a spark offensively. I still think when you get to playoffs, you need Charlie Coyle there at the 3C driving that line. Like I don't think you're in the best spot if Sean Corrali's your third line center or you're bumping Lazar up when he's looked really good on the fourth line. I think you need to get that third line going, but it has to be Coyle in the middle. So I think the biggest issue then is just where do the pieces kind of fit next to him, right? Because on paper, you have a guy like Nick Ritchie who has finished this year as a guy who plays a simple game, but adds to a line, and Jake DeBrusk, who I think we've talked about it all year. He's got the potential to be a goal scorer. He's a guy who's done it in the past, but is that the best fit with Charlie Coyle? I think even if those guys are all on a line together, at this point, do we have to juggle that combination up because Jake DeBrusk is just not comfortable on the right side? But then, where do you put Nick Ritchie? Are you bumping Nick Ritchie down to the fourth line? Like it's a tough situation because I think before this third line really kind of struggled to get traction, I think you were pretty impressed with all the other lines, right? I obviously the top six has been fantastic. You have not had to worry about that line at all. I mean,
it's wild that the Bruins have a top six.
I know it's crazy. And it's crazy how well the team looks when you've got two lines that can do that. Right. And it hasn't happened with this team for a long, long time. But even I think you look at Corrali and Lazar and Wagner, I think they've been a pretty good line too, for the most part since they've been assembled. So even if you bring in a guy like Frederick every once in a while as an energy guy, and I thought he kind of provided some of that during Tuesday's win over Pittsburgh. I think that's the making of a pretty solid fourth line where you can rotate a few of those guys in. Problem is you just keep with that third line and hopefully they cash in because I don't know if it's just, sticking too many square pegs in round holes where you need someone to help Coyle get that offense and get that offense generated. And are you getting it from Nick Ritchie, who has finished, but I don't know if he's really a line driver? How would he look if he wasn't on that top power play unit or next to David Krejci for most of the year? You could make that argument. And then Jake DeBrusk, right? I mean, I don't know how much you're going to get out of him, especially on that right side. So it's tough trying to find out what the combination is because it's also a situation where if Andre Kase was healthy, all of a sudden I think you've got a lot more of an appealing option because if Andre Kase is your third line right wing, you might have something there. But I don't think it's proactive to make any kind of realistic timetable for a guy like Kase, given the injuries he's had and the history he's had. So as I think Bruce Cassidy said, any offense or any contributions Kase gives you this year is gravy. So I don't know how much you can kind of plan for him to be kind of that solution there. But you kind of cycle through the different options they have there, right? And even guys on the taxi squad like Coolman or any of those guys. I don't know if those are the guys that are going to be the momentum changing addition that's going to get that third line going. I think you need Charlie Coyle in the middle there, and you have to kind of fight through and see what the best combination is, but your options are kind of limited right now.
You need Anton bleed. That's what you need. You need a leader out there. That's what you need. I think, again, if you are going to go to the cup, if you're going to really try to contend, Charlie Coyle needs to be the third line center. I think that is a definite. Then I think Jake DeBrusk, you need him on that third line. He's, at the end of the day, he's got some skill. Obviously I agree with Bruce and that he's got to have more compete like that. I agree with him there. And I think that there are nights that you don't notice Jake DeBrusk, and that's a big issue. You have to somehow drill it in his head that, like, dude, you've got to be impactful in these games, especially in the playoffs, or in this run to the playoffs. But I do think, again, Jake DeBrusk is a solid third line left winger. Again, he hasn't been great this year, but would you you have to go through the list? Would you rather Sean Corrali there? Probably not. You want him on that fourth line. Would you rather Trent Frederick there? No. Would you rather, you can go down the list. I don't know if there's anyone I'd rather have than Jake DeBrusk on that third line left wing spot. Because then you also have Nick Ritchie, you have Jake playing DeBrusk playing his offside and Ritchie playing the left side. But still, there's no one you really are dying to replace DeBrusk with. I also think it's good for development. Let him play out of this, maybe, even though it's been a full season thing. But I just feel that the potential the potential is just higher with him,
Right.
than it is with anybody else. I think you have to kind of roll with that. So you have DeBrusque, you have Coyle, and then probably Nick Ritchie. Nick Ritchie. I think, again, especially if you play the Caps, which we'll get into in a little bit, like you do need a big body like him. He can finish plays. He's good, solid in the cycle game. Is he a shutdown guy? No. Is he a line driver? No. Is he great? Do I want him entering zones with the puck? No. But there's enough there that warrants a third line spot. And if you want to switch Corrali and Ritchie, if you want to switch Lazar and Ritchie, like go for it. Because Cassie likes to do that mid game. But to me, I think that's going to be your third line. That's kind of got to be it. That's your highest potential with them. Because again, Kuhlman's nice, but the production's not there. Anton Bleed, Trent Frederick, these guys are cool. And Frederick, I think, will see some time in the playoffs. I think Frederick, especially if you play the Capitals, could see time on the fourth line. So the third line, I think, is up in the air. But it's funny because usually this is the debate we're having with the second line. We're usually like, listen, the second line ain't it. I also think an interesting thing about having an actual top six, and I noticed this against the Penguins. Let's say, so like Crosby and Bergeron go against each other the most. That they play, that those two top lines always clash, right? So those two go against each other. The beauty is if you played the Penguins right now in the playoffs, like let's say the series starts tomorrow, you can match up the Bergeron line with the Crosby line and not worry about having no scoring. Like Krejci's line can then go out against the second line, and that's a mismatch because that Krejci line is basically a first line. You don't have if you want the fourth line to go out against Crosby, go for it, but it's not imperative. It's not all, you winning a series is not based on Corrali, Wagner, and interwinger, probably Lazar at center, shutting down the other team's top line. So I think that's a positive that you have those two top lines doing those things. Now, I just mentioned an ideal first round matchup. I think, to me, there's no better first round matchup out of the three that you could get than Pittsburgh. What would yours be?
I think right now, it's funny. I mean, I think realistically, if the Bruins are playing at their level, I think they could beat any of the other three teams that are currently in the playoff picture. I just think
they're winning the cup this year. You don't understand. They're winning everything.
We'll see what happens when they get out and play, the Central, the West, whatever cup, whatever team gets out of the North, which have fun whoever they play out of their division. But I mean, I would probably say right now, based on the way they're playing, maybe the Islanders. The Islanders are not playing very well right now. They're not scoring. I've only been glancing at a few of the stuff been written out in New York, but there's a lot of columns recently of what does Kyle Palmieri got to do to get going? Because right now he's not doing much. So those are not good when you see those. I think Bruins fans are used to having columns like that, usually a week or two after deadlines, where they're like, "What? Who is this guy?"
It's funny how the world kind of flipped on its head with like the Bruins deadline acquisitions immediately made impacts. Like Taylor Hall is on a heater. Mike Riley's been outstanding. Curtis Lazar. No one around here has even like remotely had to say like, when's Taylor Hall going to get going? Like, it's insane. You honestly, I would have expected that in most years.
And it's funny too, because, at the very least, Hall is doing the basic of like filling the stat sheet with just the tangible stats. Cause like, even if let's say he had one goal in his 10 games, like you look at the eye test of how well he's playing, which offense he's generating, transition game, the back checking, all that stuff is great. But you would immediately get the you're looking at fancy stats, right? It's like, oh no, he also has 4 goals and 7 points. So,
look, his expected goals aren't real goals.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, yeah, he's scoring those too. I don't know if that goal he scored on Tuesday might have been the best goal of the season for the Bruins, and that
was nuts.
I kind of wrote about it that it's one thing that I think you have to be encouraged by how Hall is fit with this team, where, just how he's no longer the guy anymore. And the fact that his chemistry, I think, with Krejci and Smith has, meshed very well. But you also, I think, have to look at the fact that, hey, the Bruins have missed this kind of like instant game-changing offense that you didn't have outside of that top line, right? Like you didn't have this guy who can just, push the puck down one of the other, make a move, and all of a sudden the puck's in the back of the net. Like you've missed that, especially outside of that top line. So it's worked fantastic for them. But going back to just the matchups, like I think the way the Islanders are playing right now, it's still going to be a tough out. Any of the teams they play is going to be a tough out, but I just think the overall high end level of the Bruins is too much for the Islanders, especially the way they're playing right now. It's just it'd be tough for them to catch up. But the Penguins are right up there. The Penguins scare me a little bit because it's one thing you have to worry about Crosby, but they just seem like one of those teams where it's just these ragtag crew of jabronis that are just having career years. What the fuck is Cody Ceci doing? I'm
that's so weird.
I'm upset when I see him. I'm like, who the hell? When all these moves they made, like Matheson and Ceci, I was like, what the fuck are they doing in Pittsburgh? These bum ass guys they got, and they're all playing great. And it's not it's in the years past where it's they get Brian Rust, who the hell is this guy? And he does well because he's on the top six, or Chris Kunitz being a 40 goal scorer because he's with Crosby. It's these guys are also just playing unreal out of these spots. So I think any matchup is going to be tough, but I think right now you look at the way the Islanders are playing, that one might be a bit more of an appealing matchup because outside of, and I know they play a good defense and they pack it in. But outside of Barzal, they don't really have that game-changing offense. It's a very simplified format or structure they have. But we could also in a week be looking at the playoff standings, and as much as Bruins fans are probably looking over their shoulder at the Rangers, it might be the Islanders. The Islanders and Rangers play twice coming up here, and I think the Bruins are only 1 point behind the Islanders. So Bruins take care of business against the Sabres and the Devils, and the Rangers win those two games. Bruins could be in third and Rangers could be in fourth, and the Islanders could be out. This is what we've talked about the whole year, where the Bruins had so many games in hand, and especially such a tough schedule out of the start of it, that all these other teams are kind of more or less playing catch up now, or they're finally getting the tough part of the schedule right ahead of the playoffs. So a whole lot can change, but I think, as worried as Bruins fans were about the Rangers catching up, I think the Islanders had to look behind the shoulder at the Rangers too, because Rangers are playing well and the Islanders are not, to say the least.
That's the thing. And I think you're right. The Islanders are 63, the Bruins are 62. They play each other, all that stuff. I agree. I think the Islanders have been struggling, but I just look at the way the Bruins played them this year. I look at the way that team played for the majority of the year, how all in they went. I know they lost to Anders Lee, but I don't know. Barry Trotz's the coach. I worry about that team. They're my prediction to come out of the East, a few weeks ago. So I might stick with it. But I don't know. There's something about that team that just makes me not pick them as the easiest. I think it's the Penguins. Again, the goaltending's kind of up in the air with them. When is Malkin coming back? We don't really, do we know yet?
He's getting close. Idea.
He's getting close. Okay.
Yeah.
After he's going to come back, he's going to have his revenge for Jared Tenorti. It's coming.
Mm-hmm.
But no, to me, it's the Penguins. I think that would probably be the easiest. I don't think any three are easy. I don't think it's a favorable matchup. I don't think there's a matchup the Bruins need to play this team first. Because again, I think all three of the other teams are very solid. By the way, no one's talking about this. Taylor Hall, I added him on my Hockey Ultimate team. The 88 overall Taylor Hall card has 5 goals in 2 games. Guy is immaculate entering the zone with the puck. Just great at zone entries. He had a great card, an amazing pickup by me. It was a good bargain too. It was 35,000 coins. It was, anyone who plays Hut can appreciate the addition of him to my second line. So no one's talking about that. I don't know why no one's talking about that. That's a pretty big deal. 5 goals in 2 games. That's player of the week status right there. But yes. So yeah, as first round matchups go, I think that it's probably, I don't think it's the Capitals. I don't think that's the team you want to play first, mainly because yes, you can beat them, but they're going to beat the shit out of you. They're going to kill you. It's a war. You can't tell me Matt Grzelcyk is escaping that series alive. Come on.
I think if you're the Bruins, a best case scenario is you leapfrog the Islanders and get either the 2 or 3 seed, play probably the Penguins, and then have the Capitals either beat the shit out of the Islanders or even the Rangers, which that would also be a good scenario of which, if the Rangers sneak in, last thing you want is a hot team. If they give the Capitals trouble, there you go. I think the best case is, either you face a weak Islanders team who's slumping in, or a team like Pittsburgh that got a lot of skill, but you can still get your chances against them, especially once you figure out kind of that they open up a lot of the middle of the ice, which Cassidy alluded to in the last game. And what do you know? You got a guy like Taylor Hall who can speed through the neutral zone now. It's great how that works.
I know that too, because again, my Hockey Ultimate team is just so good on it. That's my main piece of analysis on Taylor Hall. See what he does for me. At any rate, Connor, before I let you go, what can the listeners look forward to at Boston Sports Journal?
Yeah, we're going to be starting to do our early previews of matchups in the playoffs because it's right around the corner, as crazy it is to say that. So all that stuff will be over at bostonsportsjournal.com. So subscribe to BSJ. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can do that at ConnorRyan_93.
Go do all that. For CLNS Media, I'm Evan Marinofski. That's Conor Ryan of Boston Sports Journal. You Poke the Bear listeners. Have an amazing rest of your day.